Welcome everybody. I am the air quotes comedian, a man who is religiously atheist, and this is the Polemics. Welcome. I think atheists are frustrated with religious types who believe in an afterlife because when those people die, they don't get to find out that they were wrong. Ha ha! I died, and there's fuck all. Hang on, if there's only non-existence after death, then how can I be thinking this? Yes, we atheists will never have the pleasure of saying, told you so. The only people who can say, aha, there is an afterlife, because I'm living it now through reincarnation. But you Buddhists, Sikhs and Hindus are going to have a hard time coming back to life when the heat death of the universe occurs, aren't they? It's almost like their forebears had no inkling of the laws of thermodynamics. Of course, there's still an outside chance that the reincarnation crowd could be right, because some physicists speculate that the universe is on an oscillating cycle, like a fan. But you know who puts a fan on the oscillating cycle? Fucking idiots who only want to be cool 2% of the time. Idiots who, if they were reincarnated, would come back as the lowest and most hated form of life imaginable. A Daily Mail journalist. I think I'm reincarnated as it happens. I'm absolutely certain that I used to be Marie Antoinette's chamber pot. So, as things stand, my status in the cosmic scheme of things hasn't improved one jot. When I was a young child, I was sent to a special school, the Wiggery School of the Occult and Farm Equipment Repair for Ungifted Children. After a year of study, I had my first exam, a practical demonstration of my skills on the Ouija board. That ancient occult device from ancient times, i.e. the late 19th century. There I was with the invigilator. That's what a person who watches over people taking exams is called. It's not a sex toy like the vibrator I had up my arse at the time. There I was with the invigilator. I put my fingers on the planchette. That's what the thing that moves around the Ouija board is called. It's not the surname of an actress from Lord of the Rings like the Kate Blanchett I had up my arse at the time. There I was with the invigilator with my fingers on the planchette. I nervously asked the spirit world my question. I asked the spirit world, how come my arse is able to accommodate a wholly unrealistic amount of objects? The invigilator snorted and said, Kate Blanchett isn't an object, you little sexist twat. Then, suddenly, under its own accord, the planchette started moving. Slowly, it slid over the letters of the Ouija board. It went to the letter G. Then, ponderously, it glided over to the letter U. Then, okay, look, there are only so many synonyms for the word slowly on thesaurus.com, and ponderously wasn't one of them. There are plenty of synonyms for slid, though I do question the quality of those synonyms. Anyway, don't be surprised if I end up using the word slowly again. Then, unhurriedly, it coasted over to the letter W. Then, in a manner opposite the definition of haste, it shuffled over to the letter D. Then it stopped. And not because there weren't as many usable synonyms for the word slid as I initially thought there were. No, not because of that. I mulled over the meaning of what the spirit had revealed to me. My eyebrows knitted together as I frowned, and I looked up at the invigilator and said, Excuse me, miss, I don't think the ghost I've contacted can spell. The invigilator slowly shook her head, then hunkered down to my level and said, Well, that's funny, isn't it, Patrick? Because you can't spell either. And that, dear viewer, is the day I learned a valuable lesson. Don't put a human being up your arse because they'll suffocate. On the back of that, I was promptly expelled from the Wibbly School of Magic and Small Appliance Repair for unexceptional girls, and I attended regular school. According to certain religious types, Not necessarily right-wing Christian conservatives this time, but according to them, God is infallible and omnipotent. Omnipotent means all-powerful, like the projectile diarrhea one might have after a hearty meal of fish tacos from the local gas station. If it was the case that God is infallible and omnipotent, then it should be no problem for God to produce a piece of music that every human being would love, to the exclusion of listening to any other piece of music, and love it so much that it would top the charts until the sun exploded. If God produced such a piece of music, then my question would be this: what music genre would that piece of music be, and why wouldn't that genre be country and western? Now, that's something for you, dear viewer, to ruminate upon on your own time. We have much more pressing things to be getting on with. When I was 7 or 8 years old, there was this book my mum had, a weighty tome from the Reader's Digest. Strange Stories, Amazing Facts, published in 1975, that had all sorts of fascinating stuff in it. UFOs and Project Blue Book, the Mary Celeste, Spring-Heeled Jack, the kind of pulpy, fact-free, conspiracy-laden urban fairy tales that 9/11 truther types masturbate to. Anyway, one thing that was in this book was an article on the Flat Earth Society. I thought that was hilarious because I assumed that the Flat Earth Society was an ironic club rather than a moronic club. I definitely wanted to join, and if memory serves, their address was included in the article. I never did join though, and decades later was really appalled when I learned that the flat earthers aren't being ironic. They truly believe that the earth is flat. I don't punch down. It does remind me of the stupid shit people say though. Religious types who say they don't believe in science. That's like saying I don't believe in carpentry tools, because in the simplest possible terms, science is simply the tool we use to empirically interrogate and make predictions about reality. And religious people say other stupid shit like, I don't know how you can be an atheist. It takes a lot of faith to not believe in God. No, it doesn't, you twazzock. It literally takes no faith at all. I digress, though. I was disappointed to learn that flat earthers literally believe that the earth is flat. Conversely, I was equally disappointed to learn that the Church of Satan doesn't believe in Satan at all. They're just a bunch of humanist atheists in fancy dress. Not very metal, is it? Despite officially being recognised as a church by the IRS, they do insist on paying taxes, so maybe a little bit metal. Of course, they're pro-choice, or to put it in heavy metal terms, pro-abortion. A little bit metal, I guess. Anton LaVey, they had him back in the day, didn't they, leading their church. He looked like Ming the Merciless dressed in funeral garb. He was metal as fuck. Now they got Marilyn Manson, who isn't. Still, hail Satan, I guess. I mean, would it kill them to at least pretend to worship Satan, much like most black metal bands do? Yeah, well, I don't know why I'm getting so worked up about it, because, as famed communist Groucho Marx said, I wouldn't want to be in the kind of club that'd suck my member. No doubt a bit cheesed off that the Rotary Club snubbed his application. As you may have worked out from all the guff I just said, the supernatural does not exist. It doesn't exist for one main reason. It makes no logical sense. How can something be outside of nature? I mean, even people of a particular political bent are still natural, aren't they? For much the same reason I'm atheist. Yeah, no shit. Because how could gods exist outside of the framework of reality? In order for such beings to exist, there would need to be laws to which they are bound, a fundamental structure that would sustain their existence. But, they couldn't create their own framework. Something else would have had to have done that. A god for the gods. The whole thing ends up in recursion. Theists are like, oh yeah, well, what happened before the beginning of the universe then, Mr. Atheist? To which most normal people will respond, I don't know. which is absolutely fine. Theists, like charlatans, only have all the answers because some equally ignorant asshats before them made that shit up. It's easy to be smug and patronising when your answers to life, the universe, and everything were conjured up by storytellers of yore who didn't even understand what lightning was, but were cunning enough to make their BS unfalsifiable. I think the only reason religion exists in the 21st century is because A, death anxiety, and B, it offers a community. What, you think all those folks who attend church, temple, or the mosque actually believe the bollocks their religion spouts? Religion, any religion, can offhandedly be dismissed as a bunch of horseshit, but dismissing the notion of a creator altogether requires some actual thought. Famed atheist Richard Dawkins was piss poor at making much more than populist arguments against the great bearded one, like a toddler with a chocolatey mouth having a temper tantrum. I only recognise this because I know a group of hardcore philosophers who, well, they talk above my head, but I assume they actually know what they're blathering on about. They're the kind of big-brained, learned types that would take my assertion that everything exists within nature is natural and nothing can exist outside by asking, what is nature? Well, it's trees and such, innit? What I'm saying, right, is that I ain't afraid of no ghost, because they don't fucking exist. That's the end of this episode of the Polemics. Be sure to hit the dislike button or risk facing eternal hellfire.